As a child, I used to hang out with the good people in the neighborhood. Hey, Rich, you want to go fishing? Hey, why not? You know. So I'd go to the Bronx Zoo. They said that most of the fish were in storm drains down there. So I walked in, and you get an echo. Yo, yo, yo. And I started singing. Let me do that again. Did that note, did another note. And I ended up doing 3-part harmony. I'm like, whoa, this is nice. Music is just in me. I just hear something out of the ether. Hey, check this out. It's like somebody's talking to me from another dimension, some being or something. I know it sounds strange, but that's been going on for a long time.
Richie Weeks.
Hello, how you doing?
Richie Weeks, plus connu peut-être sous Weeks & Co.
Sparks were flying all across the dance floor. Said everybody's grooving to the beat. Looking so good out there, party people.
From where are you?
I'm from New York City.
Talking about yeah, yeah, yeah. Hey, you got to go with the flow. Yeah, 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 yeah.
Richie Weeks is one of the most important funk and disco artists to come out of New York. He's an incredible vocalist, an arranger, a producer, a musician. This man has no limits.
What have you did before?
Well, I'm presently a school teacher, high school teacher on leave.
Oh,
Richie is probably the most underrated and unknown producer that dance music has ever known in the world. The story of Richie is the story of a lot of artists, especially when they're black and a minority. Richie got screwed. My name is Jerome Deraji. I am a French DJ, producer, label owner. The music industry is extremely cruel. Music is traded between major labels and corporations like a commodity. We see now venture capitalists evaluating music as much as companies and investments. They're now paying out hundreds of millions of dollars for catalogs because they finally realize that music is essential to humankind and that it will generate revenue forever. The system is decked against artists. The way major labels take over catalogs and artists' rights is so complex, it is impossible for an artist to understand how to navigate. The artist is put in a position where he's poor on purpose, he's exploited on purpose, his catalog is completely opaque, so he has no idea what's going on and who's actually in charge of his rights, and he doesn't know how to fight.
If you go into this business, you got to know all the variables, or at least the majority of them, to know where that money's being disseminated or whatever. I didn't know.
And you've got Richie Weeks, 30 years later, wondering what happened to his music and why he's not being paid.
This is poverty. This is poverty, straight up.
My name is Richie Weeks, producer, musician, engineer, and African-American. I grew up in the Bronx. The neighborhood itself was kind of rough. Fights, shootings, gangs, basically just challenging one another. I stayed away from vice. smoking and drinking and all that. I didn't do all that. Singing went through my family. My mother was a singer. My grandmother was a nightclub singer. My father was a songwriter. And all my siblings sang. So, I said, wow, this must be it, I was just going around singing in community clubs and everything. Somebody heard me and they said, well, we want to put you in the Apollo on the actual Easter show. And I'm like, what? I ended up on the Apollo stage and it blew me away. It was scary though, because I'd never been in the Apollo, not like that, I had a gold jacket, black pants, and couldn't tell me I wasn't fly, When I got out of high school, I said, I needed a job. And they said, yeah, the post office is hiring. I went and took the test. They called me about 5 or 6 months later and said, come on down. And I got in it as a clerk. You sit down, box up mail. You couldn't get bored because there was just so many people in here and everybody had something to say. Richie, what you got going on, huh? Well, I got a session tonight.
If you don't find that disco rhythm, yeah.
In fact, I was even writing songs while I was boxing the mail. I said, okay, I'd hum a tune or something like that.
Richie basically had a few bands and he caught the attention of Patrick Adams. At the time, he's the king of New York disco. If you want to go and make some disco, you got to go through him.
When I got to Patrick, he said, you got skill. Let me see if I can put you in the studio. He took all the professional people that he worked with, put me in there with them. I had songs written up, and we ended up laying tracks like one right after another.
Richie took over, writing music, recording the music, producing it, and he became an engineer at the same time. Richie's music sounds like Chic. It sounds like some elements of Prince, some elements of Stevie Wonder. Richie's music is the sound of New York in the 80s.
There were so many clubs I did in New York. The Garage at Studio 54, the Barnes International, Roseland, Funhouse. I used to have a limousine come down and they'd park right outside. Say, Richie, we're here. And I said, okay, I'll be on in a minute, I'd hit out and all my crew would come with me. The guys that I work with, the girls I was working with, and we'd drive down to the club. It was fun. It was a lot of fun.
It's a leisure state of mind. It's not that hard to find.
And then I did a group called Weeks and Company. At the time, my manager, he said, yo, man, you guys got to come up with a song. I said, no problem.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 2, 3, testing. 1, 2, 3, testing.
I started playing a rhythm, got a nice progression going on. And I said, okay, we're gonna do the bridge. Here, just go ba, 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 then modulate ba, 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 do that twice, ba, ba, and then bow. That's when my daughter came in. I played the track for her. She said, oh, it sounds good, Dad. I said, well, I need something that's up to date. What am I gonna call this thing? What are they saying today? She said, I'll rock your world. Stop. Say it again. I'll rock your world. I said, okay, that's it.
Yo, yo, yo. Yo, yo, yo. Yo, yo, yo. Yo, yo, yo.
I said, okay, I haven't the words yet, so I had to actually write the words while I was in the studio. Okay.
Dancing to the beat of the music, the rhythms that you put in a trance. Gonna find the beat, you never lose it. So won't you get on up and dance?
Yeah, I gotta work.
Synchronize your body, yeah. Work that body magic now. Synchronize your body, yeah.
Played it for some people on the job. They said, yeah, that sounds great.
Show you how.
And then next thing I know, the label put it out. And it just went straight up to the top. I couldn't believe it. Kool and the Gang were underneath me. Earth, Wind & Fire and Prince were number 3 and number 2. I was at number 1. Whoa, okay, this is real.
Rock Your World is an anthem. It's a dance music anthem, but it's a cultural anthem. When it came out in New York, you'll be hearing it out of people's radios in their car, in shops, in malls, at parties outside, everywhere. You hear Rock Your World at church. That was #1 hit. It went gold everywhere in the world.
All I wanted was to hear my song on the radio. I never expected it to blow up like that.
Entering the 80s, Richie gets signed by the really famous South Soul Records.
It was a red carpet deal. And they said, you need keyboards? Yeah. They bought me about $6,000 or $7,000 worth of keyboards and drum machines and everything. I'm like, whoa. And then when I got to the studio, they said, hey, Rich, the contracts were ready. I met the president of South Soul Records at the time. Sign this, sign that, and I'm just signing like crazy, about 30, 40 sheets. I don't even read it. I'm like, yeah, I know what this is all about.
Richie signs a deal with South Soul. The deal gives him the rights to 50% of his music, 50% of the publishing. It's not a great advance. He gets a few $1,000s to go in the studio and produce the Jammers and the Weeks & Co. albums.
But after that, the ball just took off. I started the Jammers project. And the Weeks & Company. After that, Instant Funk.
Those were incredible albums. They changed dance music in New York. They became club classics all over the world. Richie was a kind of a keyboard god at the time. Keyboard Magazine nominated Richie as the best keyboardist, above Prince, Michael Jackson, and the top 10 artist of the year.
Next thing I knew, South Soul disbanded. I got noticed when I saw it in the paper. And I heard from a couple of the producers that were on that label. They're saying, Rich, they're gone, man. Been like, wow, what am I gonna do now?
The legend is that they went bankrupt. Nobody really knows. It just looks like they just closed, stopped paying everybody, kept the tapes and the catalog. Then what happens is the old stories of money calling for money. The rights of South Soul music get sold to Verve Music Group. This company starts exploiting the catalog of all the artists on South Soul. They just release the records again, make money. Don't contact any of the artists on South Soul. Don't sign any new agreements. Don't pay anybody. Fast forward 2015, BMG buys Verve, and they do exactly the same thing. And of course, nobody respects the original agreement with South Soul. That's what colonialism is about. Exploitation is about. Slavery is about. You get somebody's work, you take all their money, and you pay yourself with it. So you can buy the nice house and have assets and put your kids through school, while these people that you stole from can't do it.
I retired from the post office in 1997. Moved out to Jersey and became a brick mason. I did that for 5, 6 years. And then I moved to Florida, working HVAC. And that's when Jerome came to the scene.
I have a really good friend in France. He's been kind of a consultant for the label. He helps me find artists. And so he gave me Richie's phone number and I called him.
And he introduced himself and I introduced myself and he says, yeah, I know who you are. I've been listening to your stuff for years. And I'm like, yeah, okay.
I knew about Richie Weeks. I love disco, I love boogie funk. There is no way I didn't know about him.
What's going on?
You're speaking with one of your heroes, you know? It's really humbling.
Okay.
You have him on the phone and you recognize his voice from, his songs.
Yo.
He sounds exactly the same. He's super fun.
And he said, maybe we need to, hook up. I said, oh, I might hook up because I said, ain't nothing happening right now. I'm just working,
He told me right away I never got paid. I don't get any statements. I see my music being released and remixed and re-edited all the time, and nobody's calling me.
The first thing he wanted to know was, do I have any contracts? So I sent him a copy of the Salso contract. He said, no, this is not right, man. I'm really? Nah, man, they owe you a lot of money.
I was like, well, maybe what we can do is work together. I can't really give you an advance because I'm not, really rich label or anything. But what I can do is try to get your rights back.
This guy's magic, man. It's like an angel, I said, ooh, hey, where'd this guy come from? Is this a setup or what?
I've always been a fan of history, of digging. I think I must have been 12 or 13. My parents took me to an archaeological site where I actually dug a skull out of the ground. It was absolutely crazy. From that experience, I became kind of a digger. Pazdu was the record label I always really wanted to have that digs for the artists that people don't really know about or forgot about. In the case of Richie, it was really about justice. Getting him his money, getting him his rights back, getting some wealth back into his family, and preserving his legacy.
My inner whatever, the angel that sits over here, said, yo, man, that's the guy. And I'm like, okay, let's try it. What the hell?
Me and you and me, in a fantasy, in the tunnel of love, in the tunnel of love.
As much as he could trust me, it took him a while to talk about all this music that he had that was never released. Usually, an artist of his, stature, you're expecting maybe 4 or 5 tapes. He was very shy about it until one day he started telling me, I've got hundreds of tapes. And I was like, what do you mean, hundreds of tapes?
Back in the 80s, every time I went in the studio, I made copies of all the stuff that I did to be on the safe side. I said, let me just take this and get a copy of it, and put it away.
What is going on?
I just can't seem to get enough.
There was a lot of music that nobody has ever heard.
I just can't seem to get enough of your love.
Suddenly, the story of disco, there was another page to write.
I just can't seem to get enough. Your love, it grooves me. It's heaven on earth, it soothes me. I have the
We hatched a plan. Let's start transferring your tapes here in Chicago and preserve your catalog. When I heard the first song, I was like, disco people are gonna completely lose their minds. We continued doing that until all the tapes were transferred. I think it took almost a year. I said to Richie, once we have transferred everything, we're gonna start compiling your music and tell your story. And meanwhile, let's fight for your rights and get your rights back so that you can get control of your catalog and your legacy. Well, so when I said to Richie, I'm going to help you get your rights back, I had no idea what I was saying and no idea what I was doing. I started searching and found this fantastic law Congress passed. It was designed for artists to get their copyrights back after 35 years. The law was designed for you as an individual to file paperwork against the label that was owning your rights. And the Copyright Office, after 2 years of filing the paperwork, will revert the right back to you. So that's what I did. I filed the paperwork with the Copyright Office on behalf of Richie Weeks, and I sent a letter of termination of transfers and copyrights with BMG, because BMG is the owner of South Soul Records. BMG is a major label that has offices everywhere. They're a division of a huge corporation in Germany. They own a massive amount of music all over the world. They're extremely powerful. November 2018, I sent the letter to BMG and nobody ever responded to us. I followed up in January 2019, February. I've got dozens and dozens of emails. Is anybody here? Can you please work on this with us? You took a label, you didn't sign any agreement with all the artists as the new owner, and you making money on everything they've done, and you're not paying them at all. Not a cent. And then when we're calling you to pay them, in this case, Richie Weeks, you're just not doing it, and you're making it absolutely impossible for us to deal with. And what happens is, George Floyd.
George Floyd! George Floyd! George Floyd!
I get this press release from BMG. And it says, in the lights of Black Lives Matter, we have decided to look at our interactions with our Black artists and make sure they're fairly treated or something like this.
That's bullshit. I don't mean to curse, but it's pure bull, you know. That's garbage. It's standard operating procedure, SOP. That's all it is. You know, to make them look good.
Here I am trying to get my artist some money that he's owed rightfully, and they treated him like garbage. And they have the audacity of saying, we care about Black people. So I call them out. I've read your press release and it's bullshit. You're lying. I've been trying to work with you. We haven't asked for anything more than what Richie Weeks is owed. And if nothing can happen out of this, I'm just going to go to the press and tell them the truth. And what happens is amazing. Fred Casimir is literally the number 2 of BMG for the world. I basically put everybody that I could in this email, so everybody in the company knows what I'm gonna do. And he hits the button reply and forgets to take me off of the email. And he says to his staff, please somebody take care of this. We have to address this situation no matter how unreasonable it is before he goes to the press. So his answer is not, let's solve this, let's be professional, let's pay the guys. His answer is, let's make sure he doesn't talk to the press.
Wow. They wrote that? Hey, that sort of shows you what you're dealing with, you know?
I see this email and I basically sent him a terrifying email. BMG, you're exploiting people and you should be ashamed. You're saying that you care, you don't. So Fred Casimir calls me. He's trying to tell me I didn't know it happened. I don't understand what's going on. I don't know why this happened and why nobody took care of this. I get the promise that he's gonna actually take care of this entire situation and make it better. And he did for a while. He actually helped to his defense, but barely. The legal team is fighting me on Richie's royalty every step of the way. They decide to pay Richie a certain amount and it doesn't match his agreement. So it's years, literally years of fighting.
How many artists do you think are out there that are in the same situation that Richie was in?
Oh, wow. I will say 90%. At least. The system is decked against everybody, not only small artists. If the labels don't pay artists, they keep the money for themselves. That's like the best kept secret in the music industry. There's labels that do that stuff still today.
These people sit down and create lyrics, chord progressions. They're doing this because of the love of doing it and the fact that they want to live by it and make money and be successful, just like you are. Come on, give these people a break. Don't rip them off, man. Give them their due.
Record companies, major labels don't want anybody to know that this law exists. It's the most important copyright law made in the US in the last decades. Finally, artists can get their stuff back without hiring an attorney, spending hundreds of thousands of dollars to fight for what they own. That's the message right there. Everybody that is on South Soul Records, you can get your rights back. It's time for people to get paid for what they've done. It was a beautiful day. I finally had an agreement. We could have gotten more money, but I said to Richie, the goal is to get your rights back, your catalog, because it's your legacy, it's your asset. And that's worth hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not millions. And I said, this is the right agreement. You can now sign it. And the moment you do that, you will own your catalog back again.
I didn't know what to say. I said, yo, when you coming to New York? Because we can celebrate. Rome was like an angel. Just out of nowhere, you know? And mind you, I never met him physically. Isn't that amazing? Everything was over the phone.
How you doing?
Richie.
He looks familiar.
What's up, man? God.
Good to see you, man.
I feel like kissing you, man.
We did it against all odds. You know, this French guy that's running a tiny little record label took on a major for the right thing to get, Richie's stuff back. That's amazing.
It did take a long time, though. Wow. It's 40 years.
There is someone out there, they won't let you go. I'm the one who needs you, wanna let you know. Tell me what you got to lose, yeah. Tell me, baby. Tell me what you got to lose.
I'm very happy to announce, for the first time in over 40 years, Richie Weeks.
Richie's story is a story of persistence and justice. It's about not giving up, fighting for what's right against all odds. It's the story of a genius, man. And I think he deserves everything that's coming his way.
How's everybody doing? This is my daughter. She's the one that came out with the phrase, rock your world. Now, when I say, yo, you guys gotta be with me now, all right?
Yo, yo, yo.
The rhythm got you put in a trance. You gotta find a beat and now you lose it. So I want to get away.